Business Communication Lecture 3. Today we will be studying barrier to the communication. In barrier to the communication, what are the barriers to the communication is making people hard to understand or people cannot understand your words. So what will happen? It will create an confusion, misunderstanding, or even if you still force to speak with them, they can stop the communication. So this is the definition of the barrier to the communication. Types of barrier. So what are the types of barrier? First one is physical barrier, the second is distance barrier, and the third is equipment barrier. So here the first one is physical barrier, the second is the distance barrier, and the third one is the equipment barrier. In physical barrier, like noise, loud sounds, or a sound of a vehicle, that makes hard for the people to focus or hear. Okay, so the sound which is coming from the vehicles or any equipments and you're standing beside and talking, that makes very hard and difficult for the people to understand. Then distance barrier means if you are having apart, if you have a long distance and the connection is very poor, like bad internet connections or phone lines, that is called as distance barrier. Then equipment barriers tool look like microphones or computers or internet not working properly, so this barriers is known as equipment barriers. The second barrier is called as psychological barrier. In psychological barrier, we have emotions. In emotions, for example, stress, anger, or sadness, and if someone calls us or someone speaks with us in this condition, then the thinking can be blocked. The thinking can be blocked. So this type of barrier is called as emotional barriers. Different view. People think and differently, which can leads to a misunderstanding. When people thinks differently, that leads to the misunderstanding. Fear of change means not to be open with new ideas. If anyone is giving us an idea but we are comfortable at our own place, then we have a fear of change, that why I should change. So not to be open with the new ideas. Bias barrier means judging person with our own opinion is called as bias barrier. Okay, then we have language barriers. That means different languages or a type of languages that the people cannot understand is called as language barrier. If you are using a language which other person cannot understand, is called as language barrier. Complicated words. If you are using complicated words, too much technical word that person cannot understand, that is called as technical barrier or a complicated word barrier. Unclear message. In unclear message, saying too much information or giving too much information that is more than one thing, that is called as unclear message. Barriers. Too many approvals that take more times can spoil the deal. For example, a salesperson who wants to give a discount to the customers but he needs several approvals from the management, and if the time is taking too much or there is a delayed, then they pass through many people. So this type of barrier is called as organizational barrier. Hiding information, not sharing enough detail or not sharing the complete detail. Then too much information, overloading people with too many details at once so that they can get confused. So this becomes a barrier. Okay. Technical barriers. In technical barriers, some people do not access to its phones or computer due to some reason. Then this type of barrier is called as technological barrier due to low network and all these things. Technical issue, that means technology not working properly or Zoom application not working properly or internet connection not working properly. So this type of barrier is called as technical barriers. Rich and poor people, rich and poor people may not communicate at the same way. So their thinkings are different. So that's the reason this is called as money difference. Then education level. People with different level of knowledge cannot understand each other. So this is called as educational level, and that comes under the social barriers. How to overcome the barrier? In this part, we will see what steps needs to be taken. Use simple and clear words. we need to use simple and clear words. Choose the best way of communication like speaking, writing, or video calls. Listen carefully and ask the question. So what the other person is telling, you need to listen it very carefully and then only ask the questions. Open to the feedback to make sure the message has been understood. Feedback is taken because the main reason of the feedback is to know that the message whatever given by us has been understood by the another person. Respect the culture and emotions. Fix the technical problem quickly if you can. So steps these steps makes easier to communicate and avoid confusion. Okay, so we have completed the lecture 3.